A gull, alone in its natural element between sea and sky, brings early tidings of great change. There are 2,000 kilometers of sea and sky to the west of New Zealand, the Tasman Sea, the birthplace of the norwester, a wind that has enormous impact on the South Island of New Zealand. When the norwester blows across the island, it affects everything that lives there. It shapes the land itself with wind and water. But the land shapes the norwester too, flinging a mountain barrier across its path. The lush green rainforest on these western slopes, the white of snow and glacier on the peaks, beyond the mountains, the golden tussock lands, all have their tales to tell of the norwester's power. That power comes from two vast processes that span the globe. First, the massive movement of the Earth's crust raised the South Island from the sea, thrusting this mountain barrier high into the sky. And second, the global weather machine, driven by the sun's heat and the Earth's spin. Midway between the tropics and the South Pole, a westerly wind belt circles the globe. In spring and autumn, the whole system passes across New Zealand. Highs and lows spin off to either side, eddies in a stream swirling slowly eastward. A low in the South Tasman Sea and a high to the north join forces to create a norwester and push it onto the South Island of New Zealand. As it crosses the high mountain ranges, the norwester creates a distinctive pattern of weather and leaves a trail that can be followed from coast to coast. Out in the Tasman Sea, the gull heads back to shore, riding in front of the weather, seeking the shelter of the land. Rainforest and wetland clothe the narrow coastal plain. Farms carved from it cling to the mountain's skirts, and the farms are home to more than livestock. In the spring season of norwesters, they're a refuge and a feeding ground for many birds as well. Sensing that the weather's about to change, paradise ducks in faithful pairs arrive to share the sheltered pasture. And pukeko have traded the easy pickings of pasture grass for the tougher reeds and rushes of their native wetlands. But they're still wetland birds and need water near their nests if they're to breed successfully. What they need is rain. But the clear skies above the coast still show no sign of rain to come, and the Southern Alps bask in the sun. The rainforest on their lower slopes is embroidered with spring flowers, offering a rich reward of nectar to the birds and insects that pollinate them. The ponderous display flight of the native pigeon, kereru, warns off competitors from its chosen feeding territory, though its landing is less stately. The flowers and new shoots are a valuable source of high-energy food to sustain the forest birds through the demanding breeding season. It's as if they know that the norwester's on its way and they've little time left to feed. A tui gorges on the kofi flowers. While a tomtit catches the insects hatching in a forest pool. Visitors are drawn to the west coast each year in the spring season of norwesters. Cottages that have been still and shuttered all winter are the scene of activity once more. People are at work repairing the ravages of winter, preparing for another season of norwesters. They've come to fish the whitebait, the tiny young of 5 freshwater fish of the galaxid family. The tiny bait spend their first 6 months at sea. The whitebaiters catch them as they return upriver when the spring nor'wester blows. Where land meets sea, a sure sign that the nor'wester's on its way. Not wind, but ocean swells, born of the nor'wester's strength out in the Tasman Sea. High above the waves, the first wind of the nor'wester reaches land. Rising to clear the southern Alps, the wind spares the coastal lowlands. The alpine meadows high on the mountain slopes are the first to feel its touch. As it passes high above, this first outrider of the wind leaves a clear signal of the force that is gathering out in the Tasman Sea, a sweeping banner of cloud above the highest peaks. Below the wind-swept peaks, all is still tranquil. For now, all that reaches the lowlands out of the west is the last warm light of the setting sun. The main body of the nor'wester is still out to sea, picking up moisture on its way. As it approaches the South Island, the lower air must rise to clear the mountains, and moist cumulus clouds form high in the cold upper air. The rising air becomes so chilled that it can no longer carry all its burden of water, and rain will fall on the west. In the morning, the nor'wester at high altitude has grown to gale force, sweeping cirrus clouds off the Tasman Sea. Out to sea at lower altitude, the main body of the nor'wester moves more slowly. The clouds are the nor'wester's self-portrait, and speeding up their movement reveals its complex nature. At high altitudes, the nor'wester blows swiftly, leaving smooth streaks of cloud. While near the sea's surface, the drag of friction slows it down. In between, a turbulent zone. The clouds roll heavily towards the coast, their dark underbellies swollen with moisture. At last, the nor'wester reaches the waiting land, the first of many visits the nor'wester will make this spring. The clouds pile up as the nor'wester is forced upwards by the mountains and begin to spill their cargo of water. The first drops of rain fall on the land below. The wind itself is hardly felt here. The nor'wester's main impact on the coastal land is rain, 3 meters of it every year. The west coast is a watercolored landscape. The water the nor'wester brings is the lifeblood of the rainforest. The rich and complex growth of massive trees and climbing vines, lush undergrowth of shrub and fern, moss that clings to limbs and carpets the soil, all the nor'wester's work. Mosses and liverworts that would shrivel if the air dried out flourish in the drenching rain. The forest floor absorbs water like a sponge, but even it's soon saturated by the downpour. What the forest cannot hold pours off the land, sweeping trees, rock and soil with it. 10,000 tons of rock and sediment can be stripped from a square kilometer in the mountains during a single season of nor'westers. And in these mountain catchments, there's an annual rainfall of 12 meters, the vast bulk of it brought by the nor'wester. It's one of the highest rainfalls in the world.